Hello and welcome to the next episode of DDR, a podcast all about your favorite Drow, Drizzt Do'Urden. My name is Justin, and in this episode we will be reviewing Exile and talking about Sojourn and what we think might be happening next.
And my name is Jeffrey, seeing as how we're huge fans of... Oh, wait a minute. We're trying something new here, so there's not going to be a dungeon delve where we see how it connects to Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean, we could, but I don't know.
There's no dungeon to delve into, right? Shoot. Well, what do I say now? Well, faithful listeners, we do have the Drizzt Done Right Discord. The invitation link is in the episode description, and we'd love to welcome you into the Dim Light Squad with the rest of our members. All you got to do is click one little button, and you'll find a whole group of people that also love the adventures of Drizzt.
Awesome.
So how you been, friend? How you been, bud?
I've been all right. I've had a couple days off here, and the past 2 days I've taken the dogs. I took the dogs.
Taken is what Liam Neeson does in 3 movies.
Yeah, there you go. I took the dogs for a walk 2 days in a row, which doesn't always happen, and so I'm feeling pretty good. Long walks too, like 4 miles each. So
oh wow.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Feeling that burn.
Yeah, totally. And the dogs are worn out. You might notice this episode that the dogs aren't running around and making all kinds of noise around me. So
throw that up into the ether, and now all of a sudden they're going to be the most energetic dogs bouncing around.
I'll tell you right now, that door over there is open, so they could easily come in here and start shaking around and hear their collars and everything. But we'll see. Nice. But so how have you been?
Tired. That's the best way to explain it.
I get that.
Doing the barista job now, still working at the farm, so I'm doing like 6 days a week right now.
Oh, geez. Oh, man, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, why would you pick up a part-time job to not work 6 days a week?
Shoo.
But, they spread the hours out and, getting well above my requisite hours that I need for what I'm looking for. And it's going pretty good. I just started doing actually making the drinks. So,
nice.
When you come up and get your grande latte with the triple pump and extra shot. So now I know what the lingo means a little bit more, and nice. So I'm working my way through the bar, figuring out how the flavors come across.
I'll tell you right now, that's one of the main reasons why I don't go to Starbucks a lot is I don't know the lingo.
I mean, seriously, if you want to feel dumb, if you order a tall coffee, it's our smallest coffee.
Right. It makes no sense.
If you get the venti cold drink, it's actually 26 ounces.
That's really big.
Yeah,
right?
But it's not venti because venti is 20, right? Vente in Spanish. But I don't exactly know what it is in Italian. So you would think venti would be 20 because the hot cup actually is 20 ounces. But not the cold one. Cold one's 26. It's all these weird little numbers and stuff to get used to. Luckily, I got a head for numbers. I like those things.
Right.
So it's like getting into the rhythm of, small, medium get 1, large, extra large get 2, this, that, and the other. Pump, pump, pump. Splash, 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 and making caffeine concoctions.
Nice.
So, while being tired, I am also ingesting quite a bit of caffeine, and that's how I'm able to bring our fans every episode we got.
Awesome. Well, we do have a very special episode here. We are not delving into Sojourn just yet. This is going to be our episode 0. I'm going to call it Sojourn Part 0, I think.
Okay.
Just because I keep ascending with episode numbers. I don't want to call something episode 0. We already have an episode 0 back like when we first started the podcast. But this episode is going to be a little different. We're going to do a quick little summary, a quick little recap of Exile. We'll be jumping into a little bit of how we felt, how we would review Exile. And then we'll get into Sojourn, start doing some, statistics of the book when it was first released, at least what I could find, talk about the cover, talk about the map at the beginning of the book, and then we'll get into the prelude. So if you would rather read the prelude before you listen to this podcast, you might want to pause it here, or before we get to that. Read the prelude, and then continue this episode. And then after that, we'll talk about our predictions about what we think might be happening within this book.
I mean, then you'll be caught up with us, and you will not have to face any spoilers of the prelude.
Totally. So
Nice.
with that being said, let's start with a little bit of a recap, the Drizzt, if you will, of the entirety of Exile.
Although when he says entirety, it gives off the feeling that this is going to be a long-winded perch. What I've done is I've tried to condense everything down into a fun little, a couple of verbal jabs.
Totally.
So when we do the quick summary, this is one of the things I like as we're going to go forward and do this again and again. Like, I can't wait to see what we call it, like what kind of bumpers we come up with, all the behind-the-scenes stuff, because it's always going to change. We're here tinkering to hopefully give you guys a fun, full-faceted experience.
Absolutely.
So, quick summary on the recap. Ready? Got your boots on?
Here we go.
Drizzt sets out to live by his own code, to be the Drow that Zaknafein wanted to be, but couldn't. His time in solitude led him to become the hunter and pull even further away from society. He didn't even really talk for 10 years, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 10 years that he was in exile, yep.
And then Drizzt was driven to engage with Blingdenstone because Belwar was the only person that wasn't a Drow that he really knew, right?
Yeah.
So the small courtesy that Belwar showed him was enough to have Drizzt walk right through the door of the Deep Gnome City and basically throw himself on the mercy of King Schnicktick, who eventually had to boot him out because it turned out that Drizzt's mother was crazy and sent a homicidal zombie that was the animated corpse of his father after Drizzt. So Drizzt left Blingdenstone, but his time with Belwar blossomed a friendship that Belwar was unwilling to leave behind. So the two set out, with Gwen, to adventure together. They met a Petch, who looked like a hook horror because of the crazy wizard that they recently encountered. But never to judge a book by its cover, Drizzt befriended the hook horror Petch named Clacker, and the band walked right into the waiting tentacles of the Mind Flayers. We found out that Belwar makes a good gladiator, and Drizzt's nimble fingers were great for giant brain massages. And you can't forget the dire Corbies and their suicidal ways. It all ended up in a showdown between Drizzt and Undead Zach, who managed to get the last laugh on Matron Malice.
Yes, he did.
As he took control of his corpse and pulled a move that would make a dire Corby proud, he launched his dead body into a lake of acid. Then Matron Malice got supplanted by Breeza rather brutally, and Drizzt dropped off Belwar at Blingdenstone on the way back to the surface. R.I.P. Clacker, who was a loyal friend of the group and met his end rather violently at the hands of Zaknafein.
Dude, that was so awesome. I mean,
that's my quick recap.
Yeah, I mean, I did not read that ahead of time. I saw how short it was, and I was just like, "Oh man, that's really short." But that was so good. Now, of course,
maybe it's kind of like what we did when you do an episode of the TV show. It's like previously on.
Oh yeah, oh totally. So if you read that fast enough, you could get through that 30 seconds. Absolutely. No, that was awesome. That was really good, and I look forward to seriously. I look forward to Sojourn's recap if you want to take that one too, just because you did such a good job with that.
I am working on condensing my Drizzt because behind the scenes for the people listening, I don't know how it feels for you guys on the other side of this microphone, but for me, when I put together a Drizzt, I feel like all I'm doing is really writing out everything. And sometimes
it's tough.
I feel like it's too much.
It's
you know what
really
I mean? Like,
tough. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe it's a self-conscious thing. I don't know if you feel the same way. But when I put it together, I'm like, man, did I take away everything that Justin's going to talk about? Because if I didn't leave him anything to actually dive into, what's he going to do for his dim light?
You just dim lighted the entire chapter, Jeffrey.
Right.
No, that is what it feels like. Sometimes it's really tough to do that. So sorry if we're all out there boring you all. Just let us know how we're doing, and we can try to condense as needed. And we're here to grow. We're here to make the podcast as good as possible. But sorry, what were you going to say?
I mean, when you want to let us know, though, send us an email to drizzdoneright@gmail.com. Come into the Discord, leave it there.
Totally.
But when it comes to reviews, only put the 5 stars up. Smash the like button.
I don't know that there are other options. I think there's only a 5-star. I don't think they have anything else.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, then never mind. Send all your hate mail to drizzdonewrong@gmail.com, and that'll go to somebody else. Only the positive vibes. they go to the DrizztDoneRight@gmail.com, and we're gonna love to go through that with you guys and see what we can do to continue to make this a fun and better listening experience for everybody on the other side of these headphones.
Totally. So, Jeffrey, awesome recap. So, like I said before, I want to go through a little bit of a review of. We each want to talk about what we thought of the book, and I'm not gonna lie. I went and I found a website of a person that normally rates books, because when I tried to rate this book, I couldn't figure out an objective way of doing it. You know, like I used to be a physics teacher, a math teacher, and it was like, hey, you showed this part of the problem or you didn't. Right? And so you either got those points or you did not get those points. And so I have a very objective mindset when it comes to grading something. So I could not dive into reviewing this book without there being an objective way of grading this. And even still, like I was saying, I found this website of this person that reviews books, and they have their little, this is how I rate books, and they have all these categories and everything.
Definitely give them a shout out. Drop it for the people who may want to also check it out for themselves.
I have the link here. It's Your Words, My Ink. I don't know the person's name. Oh, Bianca. That's it. I just see Bianca.
Nice.
And she wrote this back on August 5th of 2020, and it was How I Rate Books, a guide to writing amazing reviews. And so that's just what
we know what Bianca was doing during COVID.
Right. Totally. Rating books. And she uses...
it's a really good little blueprint to be able to follow through.
Oh, totally.
When I saw what you put down, I really liked it, because I'm a person with a communications background, so I tend to be very wordy.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you ask me, hey, how do you want to rate it? I'd be like, well, and then, and this,
right,
and that, all these things that come out. You'd be like, but Jeff, what did you rate it? Oh, so it's very helpful for me to look at categories and be able to, have a structure to put all my wordiness into.
Yeah. So I will say, she uses what's called the Caw Pile system, which is rating on 7 categories. Caw Pile, each letter represents one word. So characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. And she went through each of those categories and described what you would be rating. And it would be on a scale of 1 to 10. And then at the end, once you rate them all, you go through and you take the average, and the average corresponds to a star rating 1 through 5. I don't know why you don't just rate 1 through 10. I guess since Amazon is 1 through 5, but
yeah. I didn't know about the stars, so forgive me where mine lands. I just felt like it was right.
Honestly, yours is probably similar. But anyway,
it's pretty close. I didn't even know. Do you know what the word for what you just described is? Where every letter of the word is then a structure of its own?
It's not an. Is it an acronym? An acronym.
Oh, I'm probably gonna butcher this. So if I'm wrong, to all the people listening and somebody screaming like "you idiot," I apologize. But I just watched a show. I believe it's a mnemonic. Right?
Okay, a mnemonic.
Think of the word as a mnemonic, where you then take, let's say, what is it? Fear, face everything, and run.
Okay.
I think is what they would call that. So it lets you take the word and then break it down letter by letter, each letter being a different word. So you said caw pile. I didn't even know that until you said it. I just went one by one. I was like, this is so simple. I like this.
Oh, yeah. No, it is nice. It is nice. Oh, no, I guess I didn't put that in the actual sheet that we're using. But
if I'd have read on the left side and looked down, it would have made sense.
Yeah, right. So, we're just going to go down through the categories and just briefly talk about what we rated it, and briefly why. I feel like I rated things a lot harder than you did, though.
Oh yeah. I read your ratings. And I was like, wow.
Well, I didn't want to give it a 5 out of 5 just because I don't want to start there and just say that all these books are 5 out of 5. I do want to have books that are clearly better than others.
Look, we need objectivity in here. Right. I like it. I like it.
really, I hope, it sounds terrible, but I do hope that I find a book here that I would give a 2 out of 5. Like, I want to be that critical when I grade these.
Professor Justin does not grade on a curve. For all of you at home, it's going to be a
don't.
very strict scale.
I only did curves in my AP classes, and even then, not often.
The only curves that I did had a tangent and a cosine.
Pretty much. So anyway, the first category is characters. Characters I rated a 7 because, we had Drizzt always being true to his heart. We had Drizzt and Belwar's relationship, their dynamic as they went throughout the book was very enjoyable. Clacker. I loved Clacker. Even though just a very sad ending to his story. Jarlaxle.
That's what makes it so memorable, though, Like Disney
totally
made a career out of kicking you in the heart right at the beginning of the movie, and then, you go from there. Some of your favorite movies, like Bambi. Bambi's parents died
man,
right at the start of the film.
Yep.
Well,
it's actually much later than I remember. It's not at the very beginning, but anyway, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's significantly later, because when I was showing my kids, I was just like, oh, here it comes. Wait, she didn't die. Huh. And it's like,
you just keep waiting, like, no, it's right around the corner. And any minute, forget it.
So I said Jarlaxle, awesome addition to the story, very flamboyant and interesting, and just, he added a lot of intrigue to the story as well. Malice continues to be a little off her rocker, a little unhinged, severely unhinged, I say, by the end of the story. But, as a result, her choices just seemed a little out of character, but I guess someone that's unhinged would be out of character, acting out of character. I don't know. But just, I don't know. I wasn't totally on board with how she was acting throughout the story, but I don't know. That's kind of where I was
Makes
at.
sense. For me, I said it's probably got to be an 8 for me on the characters.
Okay.
It's funny because it started off and all you had was Drizzt, right? Because he's the hunter and all this solitary.
Mm-hmm.
But then you meet the mushroom folk, and I thought that the Myconoids, they were very
I didn't even
cool,
think about those with the characters.
They could be wallpaper, but they're not. There's an embodiment of emotion inside of me, even though they're briefly mentioned. Obviously, like I said, we have Clacker, who was the Petch turned Hookar, but you had the crazy wizard. The crazy wizard is running around like doing his bibbity bobbity boo stuff, and things are going nuts.
Man, I don't think I thought hard enough about the characters.
Like for me, Jarlaxle, he really was kind of like the Drow I was hoping to get when we were introduced to, what was his name, Bergenyon?
Bergenyon, right? Bergenyon, yep.
Yeah, which was Drizzt's, nemesis in Melee Magthier.
Right.
Except, sadly, we never really got to know much about Bergenyon.
Yeah.
So, getting Jarlaxle kind of gave that flair and that panache that shows you that maybe not all Drow are cookie cutters, right? You had Zombie Zachnafane. It really was a cruel example of just how evil and devious Drow can be. You definitely got more Belwar, loved that, and then the Basilisk. So it's like all these different little creatures I thought really brought that up for me. So I'm gonna throw an 8.
Awesome, cool. The next category was atmosphere. Atmosphere. Again, I feel like I'm being a little harsh here, but I gave it a 6. Mm-hmm. And I didn't name everything here. There was a lot of awesome stuff in the book, but then there were also a few scenes where I was just kind of like, oh, this is like a little drab. But Blingden Stone, I loved. The idea of having an entire city that's just like a maze of rock and stone, like, awesome. But yeah, the Underdark setting in general, there's monsters lurking around every corner, or at least the threat of monsters lurking around every corner. Keeps you on the edge of your seat. But then like half of running around in the Underdark is just like, oh, there's a cave and a long corridor. And it just, I don't know, it was very drab and everything and not very bright. And which I know isn't... There's a reason why I didn't write this. And it's because I can't really formulate this thought. Like, it's just what the Underdark is. And it's what Drizzt had to go through. So it's not something that Salvatore can just bypass, He has to write about it. This is something that Drizzt would have to traverse to eventually get to the surface. So no fault to his own. I just wasn't really that interested in it, I guess, as much as I initially hoped. So yeah, I just didn't have that much of an interest in it, unfortunately.
I mean, here I probably went a lot easier. I went a 7.5 because for me, I'm going back to the description of the mushroom folk, right? Their area I thought was really kind of cool with the fungus and the different mosses and stuff inside of there. Going through the Roth as they puttered around the caverns from the basilisk. I also loved Blingdenstone. Thought that was really cool. Compared to Menzoberranzan, I got the feeling that it was a bit lighter.
Totally.
More, like sparkling gems, more light just brought into it.
Yeah.
Even though they could also see in the Underdark, for some reason, I just got the feeling that it was a more well-lit city.
Totally. And
so
just
kind of in my imagination stuck out.
Yeah.
Most of the time we spent outside. Really, in the first book, was trying to avoid notice when you were outside of Menzoberranzan. So you didn't get to see much of Menzoberranzan. So, we had the pictures we shared in the Discord. That really kind of blew my mind because it was showing a city in the infravision spectrum. So in my head, when I read about Menzoberranzan, it was very much the same way you're describing in the Underdark. It was very much like, drab, not a lot of colors, not a lot of things that would set it off.
Right.
You had the mushroom grove, but really it was where like Dinan was riding this lizard to stay out of sight. It was very much stealth and decoy, other than like the Drow Justice when they blew up that house from Tekkendwy.
Yeah.
But in Blingdenstone, you get to see kids playing as Drizzt recounted the basilisk slaying. Wow, that's a lot of S's. The basilisk slaying. Then you get to see the king of the city, the way that they bring in their orange gems. It was just pretty neat to me.
Right. Cool. The next section was writing, which I gave a 10, just because I am just such a fan of Salvatore's writing. The way that he describes things and everything. And I don't have any notes on this section. I just say 10. Need I say more? Because, yeah.
No, literally, I didn't even write 10. I just wrote samesies. I mean, definitely don't think we'd have as much fun doing a podcast about a poorly written book, but
right.
RA just enriches the written word so well.
Right. Totally. The next section is plot. And again, I feel like I just like, I don't know. Okay, so I'll just say I gave it a 5. Again, I love the dynamic of the characters, especially the arc with Clacker. The overarching story of Malice trying to capture Drizzt, just, I don't know. It didn't really have my full attention. I don't know. It was creepy having a super strong zombie father coming after Drizzt the whole time, but the story just seemed to drag on at times, where it was just like Zaknafein, killed all the mushroom people. Now he killed all the goblins. Now he killed all the mind flayers, and by the end it was just like, whatever. So it just seemed a little repetitive at times, but there were definitely arcs in here that I loved. Like I said, Clacker. I loved the arc within the captivity of the mind flayers. That part of the book was titled Helpless, which was extremely applicable, right? You felt like there was no way they were getting out of there. And then Gwen comes to the rescue. Loved that. The story within Menzoberranzan, again, that didn't really have my attention either, my interest. So, I mean, I understand Salvatore needed to tie up some loose ends here, but at a certain point, I just felt like he left Menzoberranzan. Let's leave that in the past. Let's just move forward here and, keep going. Keep going toward the future. Let's get to the Crystal Shard, Jeffrey. That's what I want. I love
We are on our way, buddy. I mean, for me, I went, this is the part of where, for me, it's kind of cool having two sets of eyes look at the same book, right? I gave it a 7. Okay. I thought this was like a good coming-of-age kind of plot. Okay. Drizzt leaves his homeland. He's forced to come to grips with the solitary life choice to leave behind everything he's ever known. And then that solitary life choice makes him basically give himself up to the mercy of Blingdenstone. And, thankfully, they did have mercy and compassion. Otherwise, we would not have gotten to book 3. The zombie chase was an okay subplot. I agree that it was a bit repetitive, but I also think the Mind Flayer Hive really boosted the score for me because it was almost like it was a transition into a whole different book. Like when you walked into the Mind Flayer Hive, suddenly the tone just totally shifted. Everybody with the compulsion and the telepathy. I just really thought that was above par, I guess the best way to say that. For me, the zombie part didn't really hit us. I wanted more Zen Carla. I wanted to know more about how, the Spider Queen impacted the reality around what the entire, how draining it was for them. Why Matron Bayenray was such a shriveled prune because of going through it twice, to see the descent of madness.
Oh, that would be awesome.
A little more.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah, I just felt like that those, few arcs really just could have been fleshed out further. And hey, perhaps as we go forward, they'll come back and tie up loose ends. I'm just trying to look at this as a case-by-case basis without giving away anything that may come to pass.
You'll see in my prediction for the next book that, I think I don't think we're done with Menzo Berenzon yet.
Right. Excellent. I also thought that, going through there, that I'll mention this probably pretty soon, but House Bregan-D'Arth, the way that the combat goes, between Drow was really kind of neat as far as the plot, finding that it wasn't just house smashing house. Like there was more than meets the eye, so to say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. The next section is intrigue or conflict, which, man, I gave it a 6. Because most conflicts in this book do make sense. Characters' motivations and actions, they are consistent with the information that they're given. Drizzt's inner conflict with having to fight his father toward the end was particularly heartbreaking. But then, we knew for the entire book that the Wraith was not Zack. Not entirely anyway, or, mostly not Zack. I guess Zack was deep in there. Drizzt had to find out the hard way that it wasn't Zack, right? It was just like, hey, it's my dad, and then his dad starts attacking him. I did enjoy the sudden change of events, totally switching gears here, with when House Do'Urden was demolished by Bregan-D'Arth, or House Bayenray, whichever one.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I need to apologize. Just my notes here are severely jumbled just because I just started typing things I was thinking about them. So what you are getting here is raw Justin up in the brain here. Not that
what Justin needs is a nice Drow to come and massage his brain.
Oh, that would be awesome. I don't know if I'd enjoy that actually. So not that the next thing was really a particularly huge conflict, but I was a little confused by King Schnicktick with respect to Drizzt staying in Blingdenstone. I feel like that was a little weird that he wouldn't allow Drizzt to stick around, especially the second time around when they came back and it was like, you're allowed here for 1 10 day. And it's like, okay, but we killed the bad guy. Like, why can't I just stay? But yeah, because I understand he probably didn't want to get on the bad side of the Drow, right? But it's like, aren't they already? And
kind of like when that came up, I was thinking that really, with Schnicktick in particular, he's just trying to save the kingdom. Like they live, semi near the Drow. They go out on patrol. But what they don't want is war with Menzo Berenzon.
Okay.
So they're trying to avoid, I think, just outright defiance. Like they know, hey, we're gonna lose some deep gnomes as they go out and do their thing, but the Drow aren't trying to invade Menzo Berenzon. They're not coming in here to lay it flat and just burn it to the ground like they did with House Tekindwy.
Right.
And I think Schnicktick fears that if he were to, take responsibility for standing up to Menzo Berenzon, that Menzo Berenzon would bring him to heel.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, that makes sense, but and then, of course, the conflict between House Do'Urden and Lolth had me pretty confused. But, I mean, that's nothing new. Lolth is particularly chaotic in nature. If Lolth wanted malice on the ruling council so badly, was there no room for forgiveness? That's my thought process here. Just
forgiveness from the chaotic spider deity. I get you.
Well, I mean, I mean, again, like, the only bad thing that Drizzt did was he did not kill a surface elf. Right. You know, like, he hid up that murder. You know, he covered it up, acted like he did and covered it up. But it's like, I don't know.
Well, he also did publicly snub her.
But I feel like that came as a result.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if she would have been like, okay, like, whatever, like, go on the ruling council, then maybe Drizzt would have been like, I don't know. I mean, of course, he wouldn't have. He was never really for her, right? Like,
nope.
But
he never really bought in.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting because they said that she has no power over him. And I think that's where it really kind of like tips the scales in that conflict, is that all the other Drow, they adhere so hard to her tenets. And Drizzt can't be brought to heel by the Spider Queen, at least in this book, because he doesn't believe in her. Yeah. And he knows she's real, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't believe in following her or giving subservience to her.
Yeah. You're there petting your cat, and then meanwhile my cat is like right down here too.
For those on YouTube, say
hold
hello
on.
to Honey.
Hold on.
Hey, baby.
And here's Sergeant Tibbs.
Hey, look who's saying hello.
Tibbs hates that.
So yeah, Tahani has the biggest smile on her face when I picked her up.
All right,
for those YouTube viewers we got, they're gonna love it.
Intrigue, Jeffrey. What do you have for intrigue?
For me, I went and gave it a 7. There's gonna be I feel almost repetitive saying these things, but I gave it a 7 because for me, the introduction of Jarlaxle and Bregan D'Arth, it was really a neat way to add just a little bit of ambiguity to the Drow culture. Like I said before, the houses couldn't get caught fighting each other, or they'd have to face justice for the flawed approach. Book 1 showed the highlights of House Do'Urden eradicating House Devere, and the flaws of House Tekendui's raid of House Breath. This book introduces us ways to around fighting in public. A band of mercenaries without a house, able to silence targets and accomplish tasks that you can't be seen doing. It's almost like, for me, the role of a ninja versus the role of the samurai.
Okay.
Where the samurai is bound by his code of honor, and the ninja can subjugate those rules because they're not held by the same code.
Oh, interesting. I never thought about it that way. Huh.
I read a lot into really the things I get into. I was a big fan of the kung fu movies, so I really love like the fact that like the ninja can't carry the 3 swords. Like that's only the samurai has the 3 sword setup. The ninja is not allowed to carry that because it doesn't have the same kind of honor. It's the one sword is used for I think it's harikiri, where they cut into their intestines and kill themselves with honor. And then they have their fighting sword, and the other one. I'm butchering it a little bit, so I'm just paraphrasing as we go. But the ninja is not held to those same counts. That's why like they use the throwing stars, the smoke bombs, the sabotage, the traps, and they wear the mask to cover their face, the darkness, they attack in shadows. Whereas the samurai meet you on the battlefield dressed in full battle regalia. You know what I mean? It has to come up in their sword fighting, and they go back and forth. The ninja's just trying to slip in there, kill you, and slip out.
Interesting. Yeah, I am not that up with ninjas versus samurais. I do love a good kung fu movie. I haven't watched one in a long time because Sarah doesn't enjoy them, but
neither does Elizabeth. Shout out, who I know is listening to this episode. But I do love me some good fight movies.
What's that? Shoot.
Tell you, if you get some Justin time and you want to sit down and watch a really good setup, Ong Bak, fantastic. Tony Jaa is amazing, at least early in the career. He's done some movies lately that just haven't been as cool, but Ong Bak 1 and 2, great.
I'll have to look those up. I know I can't remember the name of the movie. The guy that's in Rogue One, the blind Force user. Yeah, he's like a Force user.
Donnie Yen.
Yeah. He's in a kung fu movie called
Ip Man.
Ip Man. I couldn't remember it. I was like,
for those who can't understand what I'm saying, it's IP Man.
Right.
I call it Ip Man.
Ip Man.
I've watched several of them.
There's at least 3 or 4. I've only seen the first one, and I absolutely love it. And I wish Sarah would just like sit down and watch it with me, but
there's one where Mike Tyson is involved.
No way.
do yourself a favor. Watch more Ip Man. It's really good. Donnie Yen is amazing. I like Tony Jaa because he reminded me a bit of Jet Li. He does a lot of the same kind of effects and stuff, but he doesn't do the wire work. At least early in his career, it was all real stunts. So like, one fluid shots, so you don't break down the action, cut scenes.
Cool.
It's one continuous shot, that just little different things. Like he does a lot of flips, kicks, and that's him doing it. It's not CGI imposed.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right. Hey, Jeffrey, we're in a show here. Logic is the next section, right? Logic? Yes, Logic, which...
Irony.
I gave Logic a 10 because the scenes just flowed seamlessly. The battle scenes were written in a way where you could easily picture exactly what was happening. The fight with the dire Corbies was definitely one of the best written in this way, I thought anyway. Drizzt started defending himself with the Corbies with the flats of his sword, and then the hunter came out to play, and the Corbies were just cut into confetti, right? The addition of the Corbies dropping from above wielding boulders just showed how chaotic these creatures are. Just the battle scenes in general in this book, and just, I mean, maybe this kind of goes along with Salvatore's writing. Just seamless. They make so much sense. You can really picture exactly what's happening. And yeah, just absolutely love. Yeah. Completely logical. 10 points.
Agreed. 10 points. I didn't even want to put down anything after that, because I agree completely with what you're saying. I think that it was all... It's not a whole lot of dead space to me. It's not like I watched a 3-hour movie and went, gee, I wish it was 90 minutes.
Right.
And everything he put down, I ate up.
Nice. Yeah. And then the last section is enjoyment. And again, I gave it a 7 because overall, I did enjoy this book. But I liked Homeland significantly more. We didn't do this with Homeland. I don't know that I would even give Homeland a 10, but I would definitely give it at least a 9. So, yeah, as always, Salvatore's writing and descriptions are just stupendous. The main overarching plot, however, just really didn't grip me in this book. So that's kind of
makes sense. I don't think you're alone in the fact that, for you, Homeland was the book that will set the standard, at least in this trilogy. Mm-hmm. Where I think if you read critical reviews, that you'll see that a lot of people probably agree with you that this wasn't as good for them as the first book. For me, it's an 8.5. Maybe I have a little recency bias, but the Mind Flayer part really sucked me in. I thought it was horrific to watch Drizzt get chased by his dead pop. And all in all, I just really enjoyed it.
Awesome. So I went ahead and calculated my average over all these. It came out to a 7.1, which on this scale that, what was her name, Bianca, put together, corresponds to a 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, I guess 3 out of 5 or 3.5 would be if you divided it by 2, because it's instead of
funny you did said that because I was just about to say the same thing.
Instead of a 10-point scale, it goes down to a 5-point scale. So it's like, okay, 7.1. Why don't you just divide it by 2 and then you have 3.5? Well, I guess a little bit more
ish.
But I guess since
we're rounding to the 10th decimal. We're not going to the 100th.
It's a little above 3.5, so then I guess it rounds up to 4. I don't know, but according to that scale, as long as we're using that scale, that rounds up to a 4 out of 5 stars, which I'm happy with. If I had to give it a blind rating and just what did I rate it? 4 out of 5 seems good, so I'm happy with that. That's what I give it.
Nice. I divided all my scores up the same way. Came up to 8.2 without having any idea that there was a star chart. I said 4.5, 4 out of 5 stars. And it's funny because you did that. In my head, I was thinking I didn't want to give fractals, right? Didn't want to go too crazy. But technically, I guess I'd be 4.25 out of 5.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's what I said. You said divide by 2. That's the same idea I was thinking. I was like, technically, I think 8.2, that's kind of like a B, right? It's 80, but it's a good 80%. So yeah. Ended up with 4.25 out of 5.
Nice. Awesome. So there you have our reviews. You can take that as you like it. If you hear us being too critical, sorry. And if we're not critical enough, sorry. That's just what we think. So you can take it as you want.
And, one of the things we might do is think about cleaning this up a little bit as far as the notes we put in and sharing it in the Discord. Because, we really want to encourage the interaction between you all who are listening and us who are doing all the talking. So feel free to put down your own scores and send them into the Discord. Send them to our email. Just find a way to send them to us. If you can write them in the sky, all right? I'm over here in Maryland. Put it up there big enough, and I'll accept that too. Smoke signals are tough for me because Canada's wildfires was too much. Yeah. I'd rather you just write us an email or put it in the Discord. Almost called it the Drizzcord.
The Drizzt.
Yeah, when you accidentally name something that you really, really love. Yeah, I almost called it the Drizzcord.
The Drizzcord. I love it.
Yeah. That's probably how I'm going to introduce our Discord from now on, as the Drizzcord.
All right. So there is Exile for you. We're now going to start transitioning into Sojourn. So again, we want to talk a little bit about the stats and then look ahead. Okay. So if you did not read the prelude yet, you might want to stop here. Go ahead, give that a read before you finish the rest of this episode. We're going to keep diving right into some things here. So, Sojourn. It was originally published in 1991, so I was a good 3 years old, Jeffrey.
Ooh, I was 10. 10! As many stars as you gave the logic and the writing.
As far as sales goes, I couldn't find, how many books were sold. Not easily, anyway. Maybe if I dug around a little bit more than I could. But reception of the book seemed to vary. Amazon reviews to this day is currently a solid 4.7 stars for the upcoming book. Out of 5, that is. 4.7 out of 5. With over 6,000 reviews. All right. I did see a few lower ones. More official lower ones. Like a company or a group called Fantasy Literature rated the book at a 2.5. Again, out of 5. Calling it unmemorable and a dud. So that's a little scary.
And you thought you graded hard.
Yeah. And then there's another group called Let's Read TSR that gave it a different rating. Okay, instead of out of 5, they gave it a C-, which doesn't sound great. They called it a painful slog and forgettable. So that makes me a little scared to go into this book. I hope that it's not quite that bad. Again, Amazon Reviews has it rated very well, so that's I'm excited for that reason. That's
interesting. Sure. It's one of the things that when we get to the end of the book and do episode 0 for the next book, we might have to give it a call back and see how our rating actually holds up against all these other people. Do we agree more with the 6,000 or so avid readers who decided to give it a high rating, or the couple of institutions of reading that decided to just go ahead and take a sledgehammer to it,
right? And I mean, I don't think I could ever be that brutal, calling it unmemorable and a dud. Oh man, that's horrible. But
it's my belief that people on the internet, some of them just love to really just be hot take.
It could
I didn't like it. Becomes, it was the worst thing I've ever read.
Yeah, that's
sure.
True. That's
all right,
true.
pal.
Yeah.
Some people just want to be edgy and mean.
What was the food critic in Ratatouille? I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I know. Yeah, I have. I know exactly what you mean. I just don't remember his name. Yep.
They just have to find their Ratatouille, right?
Yeah. That thing that just brings you to life.
Totally. So the book in 1991 came out with a cover that should be very obvious to everyone. And I'll post this on the YouTube right now, as we're talking about this show, or talking on this show, talking about this book. It's a scene of Drizzt and Guinevere peeking out of the cave. I assume it's just as they're exiting the Underdark and making their way onto the surface world. You see the full moon in the background. Now, I don't remember them talking about the full moon in Exile at the end, but I do remember him talking about the stars.
What's neat is it actually literally looks like the mouth of a cave. You have the small
Oh,
jaw they're
yeah,
standing
totally.
on, and then like the maw is the lit behind them.
Yeah.
And the top above them that would complete the cave looks a bit like the muzzle part of an animal. So it's like they're standing at the mouth of the cave.
Right. Oh, and I should say we do have plans of posting these on our Discord as well. So if we're not doing a good enough description of description of what the book cover looks like, and that you can't tell what it looks like or which one it is, check out the Discord and hopefully it'll make a little more sense. So in 2004 there was a new edition made, put together with a new cover, and it's again a very similar cover, but this one is during the daytime, I noticed. All right. Mm-hmm. So the original was a like at night you see the moon in the background. It doesn't look nearly as bright, nearly as colorful. It's a little more dark. And then with the 2004 hardcover version, it's clearly daytime. You see some evergreens in the background along with a mountain. But again, it's Drizzt and Guinevere peeking out through this cavern with sun rays coming in. Drizzt covering up his eyes because you can imagine he's, probably in severe pain here, looking into the sun. So, I guess you could assume this isn't the first time with this cover. This isn't the first time he's looking out, because the first time he was looking out was at night. But
You can see his cloak is in tatters too.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call, because that totally comes up in a few minutes here.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So two very similar covers, but yet slightly different, just noticeably different. Now, Jeffrey, you shared with me a couple other book covers here. I
guess the best way to describe them could be probably like alternate covers. I know some of them are definitely straight out of the graphic novel covers, but the first one I have it's got like these red hands at the bottom of the screen, and you can see the swords that are menacingly pointed in the direction of Drizzt and somebody who's battling with him. There's a tall Caucasian-looking man with white hair and a white beard.
Yeah,
he's got his sword drawn, and they're almost shoulder to shoulder. Well, they are shoulder to shoulder, almost back to back, as they're fighting off these incoming monsters set during the daytime.
Something.
The next one I have is, you see Drizzt in the lower left corner. This is definitely off of the graphic novel. And you can see the same guy I mentioned standing above Drizzt's head. There's a few
there he is.
Figures outlined on the hill in the background, or the mountain. Can't see them, but they're wielding weapons. And then there's this stoic woman with a spear right there with the white hair.
Yeah, like who is that?
Yeah.
Man. No, wait.
Like, I've got guesses, but I don't want to say anything for certain because I don't know.
No, I just thought of who. Now, I will say, the guy in the back, that's like, Drizzt's face is in like the lower left, like front, like toward the front, and then that guy with the big white beard, he's in the back. Is that an owl with him? Does he have a familiar?
Like yeah.
Or some kind of pet.
Oh, he might be like a druid or a ranger.
Oh, that would be cool. But then, who's this lady?
I don't know. Is it Mushi?
Well, I think the other guy's Mushi. But I don't know.
The third cover that I found here, it's got Drizzt and Guinevere sitting on, I guess, the similar part of like the cave or the mountain, and they're looking out over a valley. The sun is, I think, setting. I guess it could also be rising, but they're looking contemplatively out over the valley. Much more softer cover as far as the emotion of it. The next cover is, again, straight out of the graphic novel. It shows Drizzt covering his eyes up, similar to the one that you talked about with the hardback cover.
Oh, yeah.
He's got holes in his tunic, I guess, the shirt there.
Yep.
And he's got a sword up in the other hand that's not blocking his face as the sun is rising.
Yep.
See that bird off in the side. I wonder if that's the same bird from the other cover with the man in the white beard.
But yeah, definitely shielding from the sun there. You can tell he's agonizing over that. That's for sure.
The third book that I found, or the fifth cover that I found for the third book in the series, actually says Forgotten Realms, Sojourn 3, The Legend of Drizzt, Book B Variant, or Book 3, B Variant. So I don't know if it's an alternate cover or something, but it shows... you had said bugbears. I kind of think you're right. He's got these creatures with a beard, long hair, spiky
Yeah.
pauldrons, I think they are, the shoulder covers.
They look very orc-like, but they have a nice big like beard going across. So I think they're bugbears, but you know.
And then Drizzt is center picture, both scimitars drawn, jumping into the fray. Darker cover, looks like it's also during nighttime, and this one gives off the appearance of being in the middle of a battle.
Yeah, lots of reds and purples and oranges, and looks really cool. That's probably my favorite cover, second favorite cover, I guess, because the second cover I talked about, I think that one's my favorite. The one that's like on Amazon right now. If you buy the audiobook or the digital copy of the book, that one.
It's definitely the one I'm most familiar with. The one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Totally. Awesome. So a lot of different covers here. Check them out on our Discord, or you can look them up online yourself. But yeah, a lot of different versions out there. Next thing we wanted to talk about was, once you open up this book, Jeffrey.
Yep.
The map. You get a new map. And
even if you're on the Kindle version, it's the first thing you see on the page. You don't even have to open it up. You could just hit it.
Yep. And that was...
For those of you who listen to the audiobook, sorry, you probably aren't getting the map.
They should.
I'm not sure because I don't listen to it.
And, now that I think about it, I went back and I'm looking at Exile right now, and the only map that they have at the beginning of Exile is a pretty big spoiler. It's called the Illithid Cavern. They have a map of the Illithid Cavern.
Interesting.
So it's like, hey, he's going to be in a cavern of Illithids. But of course, if you look at the cover of the book, I guess that would be a spoiler because it's covered in Illithids. But anyway, in this cover, there's some really, it's really cool looking, okay? So we start up all the way up at the north. We have a gigantic forest called the Coldwood, which... I have never heard of any of these places, but the Coldwood, it sounds cold, Jeffrey.
Probably going to be a little chilly.
Moving further south, we have Citadel Adbar. Not sure what that is. We have Mushi's Grove.
That's why I kept wondering, is that Mushi? Is that Mushi?
Right. Well, Mushi, as you remember, and I'm sure our listeners remember, in Exile... During was it the beginning of part 5 during the insight check, Drizzt refers to a number of different friends that he's had. Now that was like a future self that Drizzt that was writing, and he referred to Mushi and Wolfgar and Canterbury and all these people that we haven't heard about yet, we haven't read about yet, chronologically speaking. But yeah, here's Mushi's Grove. And then we have Drizzt's Cave. We have a stone giant lair, which actually is very close to Drizzt's Cavern, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I had to stop and look at the map key, and it turns out that 1 inch on the map equals 20 miles. So it's definitely a little bit further away than I thought at first, because I looked at it and had the same idea. Like, wow, they're right on top of each other.
Yeah, they're probably like 5 miles away, maybe a little further.
I guess it depends on the size of the book you have.
Oh yeah, good
if
call.
You have the large hardback version, they might be 40 miles apart.
Mine says the same thing. 1 inch is 20 miles, and I'm holding it right here. But yeah, if you, I wonder if they actually changed the scale. I don't know.
That's interesting.
It's
definitely gonna be different between paperback and hardback.
Right, I guess so. We have 2 places that kind of look like they might be cities or villages of some kind. Maldabar and Sundabar, which...
Nice.
Let me just say, like, City of Adbar, Citadel of Adbar, Maldabar, Sundabar. What is with all the bars? They have a lot of bars around here.
They don't card Drow. No, I definitely think you're right there. Maldabar and Sundabar definitely would seem to be cities because they have the same, what do you call it, the herald on the thing, the banner that the name is written on.
Oh, yeah, totally.
As Citadel Adbar. And I'm horrible at remembering exactly what a citadel is. And before I go into it, did you know what a citadel is off the top of your head?
A citadel? I don't know. When I think of Citadel, I think of oh shoot, what's the name of the city in Lord of the Rings in the third movie? The big city. Shoot, I'm the worst.
Not Gondor.
No, well, yeah, Gondor, but the city of Minas Tirith. Man,
okay.
Yeah. There's
it has a citadel.
The citadel
right.
at the top. It's almost like a cathedral.
Yeah,
sort of.
Bit of like a fortress kind of deal.
That's kind of what comes to my mind.
But for me, it was pretty cool. I went and did a little Google dive into it, and evidently the word comes from the Latin word civitas, which means citizenship or the state or city. This formed the Italian word citadella, which means small city. Another fun question. What do you think a Mushi is? I know you answered it. It's probably one of his friends. But that's what, for me, like when I read through that was my first, like, popped in my head. What is a Mushi?
I have to say, based off of the name Mushi, okay, you probably won't get this reference. I don't even remember the character's name, but in Final Fantasy VII, there is this big marshmallowy character that is being ridden by a smaller character. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I think of Mushi as that kind of character. After seeing these covers that we've been talking about, I can't help but think that Mushi was the guy with the white hair and the bird.
That makes sense.
But I don't know. I don't know. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into this prelude here, which I kept calling the prologue before, but it is called a prelude. So several months have passed, and Drizzt is tirelessly trying to adapt to the surface world, mainly to the ball of fire in the sky, but also to the cold chill from being up in the mountains. And yeah, he's like forcing himself to adapt, which, if you know anything about evolution, doesn't work that way.
No, if willpower alone could change genetics.
Drow magic seemed to be quickly destroyed by the sun, with magic leaving his Pawafwi and his boots.
Yeah, so which is what you said about the cover making sense, having the holes in the tattered remnants. Yeah, I like that.
So then he starts to wonder, like, are his scimitars also going to suffer the same fate? Just start degrading, start rusting in place, and start falling apart. Like, that would be so heartbreaking to him, because they're a part of his body.
Yeah. I think what he wonders, like, how they were forged. Will it be affected in the same way? Because, like, even his boots are thinning. Right,
exactly. Now, I kind of feel like his boots are thinning because he is he's forcing himself to be out in the sun and to kind of ignore the pain, to try to get rid of the pain, to dull the pain in his eyes. He's like kicking with it, like he's stubbing his toes on things, like to try to like divert the pain away from his eyes, which that could also be why his boots are starting to fall apart. Drizzt, despite experiencing the chilling bite of icy wind, Drizzt tore off the remains of his Pawafwi and tossed them down into a chasm and faced the light, which I just loved that scene because it was just so symbolic of him leaving behind his past in Menzoberranzan with one final action. Just one last thing he could do, and he shed his Pawafwi. I don't think he has his house emblem anymore, does he?
No, right? They used it as a decoy.
But did Guinevere ever bring it back?
I don't know.
It never. I don't remember it ever saying that he did. But anyway, Drizzt preferred this fate of leaving Menzoberranzan behind entirely. He preferred this fate of facing the sun, facing the chilling winds, to what would have been in the Underdark. But then, so that's pretty much the end of the prelude from Drizzt's perspective. We get this ominous perspective along a different mountain, not too far away, where another creature that was also exiled from their homeland, they are destined to return to their homeland when he becomes strong enough. And much like any D&D character, how do you become stronger? Jeffrey, how do you become stronger in D&D?
By lifting large rocks and setting them down. No?
By killing things, right? Murder hobos.
Right.
You go through an entire town and kill everyone, and then you get the XP. I mean, I don't want to say that that's frowned upon by all DMs, but by this DM it is at least. But anyway, yeah, so this creature clearly, whatever this thing is, what's its name? Ulgalu or something like that? Is...
Algulu.
Oh, whatever.
Or Yulgulu? Yeah, something like that.
We'll work on it. Algulu. It's, yeah, looking to... I mean, it's been killing things for who knows how long. It said that it's... What? It's like matured. It's toward the end of its training or whatever you want to call it. And, yeah, it's just kind of ominous, that whole paragraph or two. So... my impressions with this, or do you want to take impressions first?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll jump in on the impressions. For me, when the prelude started, I thought it was his first sunrise until it said he'd been up there for months. It was really a neat way to phrase it.
Yeah.
It's like I almost get this feeling that it's kind of like this rebirth scenario, or perhaps like a baptism by fire, right?
Okay.
The sun is burning away all the impurities that Drizzt was born with in the Underdark, and he's undergoing this like metamorphosis to become something better, definitely something different. Drizzt is, basically like a little butterfly, just yearning to spread his wings.
Yeah, that is one thing. I really do wish that we had a chance to read about his first experience with the sunrise. Just what was exactly going through his mind.
Yeah, because it had to be horrifying, terrifying, exhilarating, all these different things. Like,
yeah,
that's what I thought I was getting set for.
Right.
And then it was like, no, months you've been there already.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. The other impression I have, the other question I have is just like, who is this Ulgalu, Jeffrey? Who is this Ulgalu? And so it said that he's from Gehenna. So I did a quick Google search on Gehenna. I just searched Gehenna, and Gehenna, turns out, is a biblical location. It's a valley around Jerusalem that is analogous to hell.
Interesting.
So I ignored that Google search because I was getting nowhere. There were so many just like biblical sites talking about it. So I added D&D in there, and then all those sites disappeared. And I found this Forgotten Realms page on Gehenna, which is also known as the bleak eternity of Gehenna. And it sounds just insane. There's 4 layers where gravity is at a 45-degree angle to the ground, which basically just means that the entire plane is like a steep slope.
My
right?
mind can't even really wrap around that. Yeah. And how would all 4 planes be at an angle? Like because it says like walking up an endless mountain. Like there's no top, no bottom. Really, you're just walking askew, slanted.
That's got to be so awkward.
It says that like if you were to fall, you could roll for quite some time.
For miles, because much of the terrain is very slick and slippery, and it's just like interesting. The structures are, there are structures. They're built into the slopes or carved into the slopes. What I thought was really interesting was that heat and light come from the ground.
Oh, wow.
Sort of like a volcanic energy, like lava and magma and things like that. So I guess there's no like sun. I don't know. Anyway, it sounds like a very weird place. When I first read Gehenna and was reading about Ulgalu, I was like, oh man, he must be like some kind of stone or earth golem or something from like an earth, like a elemental plane. But no, Gehenna is said to be an outer plane, or it was an outer plane. But what does that mean? It was an outer plane? Now it's not?
When you go through that description, I get major, like, Balrog vibes.
Right. So, I don't know. So I'm really excited to see exactly what this thing is. The only other thought I have about it is, referring back to the map, Drizzt Cave is, like I said, maybe 5 to 10 miles away from the stone giant lair. That was one of the reasons why I thought this thing was more like a stone or earth golem. Was it, had the stone giant lair there. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. So
I like it. Do you have any, I don't know, let's say, predictions, I guess, coming up for the book?
I mean, I feel like we talked about a number of them already. Like, I feel like we're going to run into Mushi here. So looking at the map, we see Mushi's Grove. I feel like that has to make sense. I feel like that has to happen, right? Looking even further beyond this book, the next book is The Crystal Shard. I don't remember the specifics of how Drizzt meets all those people in that book. Canterbury, Brunner, the halfling. What's the halfling's name?
Regis.
Regis, Wolfgar. I don't remember how he meets all those people. So I kind of expect he's got to meet some of them, at least one of them in this book, right? I don't know. I don't remember. Or I never read this one, so I don't even know. Another prediction I had, I kind of hinted toward earlier. Even though House Do'Urden is gone, I don't think we're done with Mezzo-Baranzan. Lolth is obviously not happy with Drizzt, right? So he's not happy with him being alive. And knowing that Dinan and possibly Vierna are still alive, I think we'll probably see maybe a hunting party during the night of Drow coming up to the surface. I don't know. We'll see. That's what I think.
I mean, when I looked at the map, I was also definitely drawn to Mushi's Grove. Also, I was kind of wondering what Dead Orc Pass is, right? Obviously, it didn't turn out well for the orcs, but it also kind of makes me think that we're going to run into some orcs and maybe have one as the main villain. I know Ulgulu is kind of put into the prelude, but will an orc become the main villain? Is that why you see Dead Orc Pass? Maybe. You get the stone giant lair. Sounds awesome. I want to see how he reacts with all these wonderful surface dwellers, right? And what they make of him. I know that the Drow are reviled mostly wherever they go because of their violent nature, right? Mm-hmm. They're vicious. But maybe, was this all brainwashing? So that maybe they wouldn't go to the surface? Maybe people like the Drow, right? All right, so that's probably a bit of a stretch. But I'm hopeful that Drizzt won't be judged by his appearance right away by all races. The surface elves are definitely going to hate him. But how many other races have actually come in contact with Drow, right? It's such a big, big world out there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, if I didn't know as much as I know already about, like, D&D lore, I would probably be a little more hopeful. But, yeah, I kind of think Drizzt is going to be severely hated by just about anyone he runs into, unfortunately. But, yeah, I don't know. All right, Jeffrey.
I mean, we do know that it doesn't always match up between game and book,
though. Oh, totally. Absolutely. And then, Jeffrey, one more big question. Is there going to be a goblin? So, I'd be willing to put my money on it. Just because, again, I never read this book, but seeing as we are 2 out of 2 so far, I am very confident that we are going to see yet another Byuk-Yuk, another goblin that we, as the reader, take pity on.
Well, since you said yes, I'm going to lean no and say that Mr. Salvatore fights against forming a trope where we start to feel bad for the goblins. Will we see one? Yeah, probably. But I don't think we're going to get the empathy treatment. I feel like he'll throw us a curveball and find a different race that we don't see coming, hit us right in the feels.
Well, I could see that. I could see that too. Totally.
Like maybe the stone giant turns out to have, like, a hangnail and it's It's been abscessed and festering, and he really is having a hard time. And Drizzt comes along to become best friends because he helps him remove that nail.
He's just a little grumpy. You would be too if you had a hangnail, Jeffrey.
What was that joke with the alligator? They're so angry because they got all them teeth and no dentist or something like that.
Anything else that we want to cover here, Jeffrey? I think that's the end of our notes here, but
yeah,
I can't think of anything, so I guess we'll call it. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember that if you like the show, give us a 5-star rating. Also, make sure you're getting the most out of this podcast. Pick up a copy of Sojourn and read along with us. And hey, if you don't have time to read, pick up a copy of the audiobook instead and listen to it during your commute, while you're at work, while you're working out at the gym, or wherever. And when you've read the first part of Sojourn, shoot us an email at drizztdoneright@gmail.com or log on to our Discord to join in on the discussion there. Remember, we would love to hear from you.
Kicking off the third book in the first trilogy. Tweaking things as we go along. Can't wait to see where the book takes us. Of course, I know a few things that happen later on because I've read a lot of these books, but we're going to do our best to give you our impressions as we go without spoilers, because no one likes spoilers. No one. I mean, we even have a room dedicated to spoilers in our Drizzt Court because we don't want anything to ruin the experience for those adventurers who are joining us for the first time. So be brave, fellow travelers, as we set out on this adventure together. And until we meet again with the next episode, farewell, play fair, and be well.